9 units, the sheriff's department, everybody's like they're doing their best right now to figure out like if they can get a scent, see where they went. If they went on foot, they went in a car, or they went somewhere. And right now it's just like they've been on point. They're going through the house trying to get a scent, and hopefully they can pick something up to where it's going to lead to something.
What happened? Your wife came home. Tell me what's.
She came home from the airport 2 a.m. and I left around 5:15. She was still here, and like about 12:10 in that afternoon, her friend Nicole showed up at the door. Like I had texted SHANANN a few times that day, called her, say, but she never got back to me. But she wasn't getting back to any of her people as well, and that's what really concerned a lot of people. Is like if she's not getting back to her, like if she doesn't get back to me, that's fine. Like she gets busy during the day, but she didn't get back to her people, which was very concerning. And Nicole called me when she was at the door, and that's when I came home and then walked in the house.
Every story of evil has a beginning long before the act itself. Long before headlines and handcuffs, there is always something quieter, a shadow learning how to live among ordinary people. Chris Watts wasn't born into the darkness he carried, he built it slowly, piece by piece, until it looked like him. Before SHANANN, there were other versions of him, the careful student, the soft-spoken neighbor, the man who never raised his voice. Everyone said the same thing, he was nice. But niceness, when worn as armor, hides more than it reveals. His greatest skill was invisibility, the ability to move through life unnoticed, unchallenged, and unexamined. People like Chris don't explode, they erode. They study emotions the way others study mirrors, learning how to mimic reflection. He learned early that the world rewards those who smile, who nod, who never make noise. And in that quietness, he built a double life, one built on charm, the other on control. When SHANANN entered his life, she saw potential, not emptiness. She gave him color, structure, purpose. He gave her calm, the illusion of safety. Together they looked complete, but behind every photo, behind every perfect couple caption, something was deteriorating. Chris was still learning how to disappear, this time not from people, but from himself. This story doesn't begin in the crime scene, it begins in the silence that raised him. The kind that teaches men to hide their pain until it becomes something else, resentment, suppression, calculation. When the world later asked why, his answer was emptier than the grave he dug. There are crimes that make you question humanity. And then there are the ones that make you question perception. How someone so ordinary could conceal something so monstrous. How a man who whispered bedtime stories could also plan burial sites. Before the world knew his name, before the lies unraveled, before SHANANN's laughter became evidence, Chris Watts was already hiding. He wasn't hiding a crime. He was hiding himself. And that is the chilling secret this story exposes. SHANANN wasn't the first to meet his darkness. She was just the one who believed she could save him from it. From the outside, they looked untouchable, the kind of family that made ordinary people believe in order, in faith, in the illusion of control. SHANANN Watts documented everything, birthdays, vacations, baby announcements, daily gratitude posts that turned the simple act of living into testimony. She wasn't showing off, she was surviving. Her camera wasn't vanity, it was protection. Every video she uploaded was a shield against her greatest fear, being unseen. To her friends and followers, she was radiant, a woman who had beaten illness, rebuilt her life, and found love again. She spoke with conviction, a rehearsed joy that made people trust her resilience. But no lens is neutral. Her camera only captured what she wanted to believe, that her husband still adored her, that her family was still whole. Chris appeared in those videos like a shadow in daylight, quiet, polite, perfectly framed. He smiled when prompted, held their children on cue, kissed her forehead when she leaned close. His stillness was misread as humility. But in hindsight, it was the calm of someone already rehearsing his absence. Every Facebook post was a love letter written to convince herself the feeling still existed. Every comment from strangers saying, "You're such a beautiful family," fed the illusion that nothing was wrong. But something was. It lingered in his body language, in the seconds between her laughter and his response. In every video, there's a pause, a heartbeat of discomfort that now feels prophetic. Social media has made confession performative. The more pain a person hides, the louder they celebrate. Shanann built a world that looked invincible because she couldn't afford for it to fall apart. Her success depended on optimism, on belief, on control. But you can't curate truth forever. Behind those filtered moments were arguments, financial strain, exhaustion, and a husband slipping further into secrecy. Shanann posted hope to the world while privately pleading through text messages no one saw, "I don't know what's happening to us." When investigators later scrolled through her account, they didn't just see posts, they saw evidence. Love as a timeline. Hope as a breadcrumb trail. A family performing happiness for an audience that applauded while everything was collapsing off camera. To the world, they were a dream. To those who would later study the footage frame by frame, they were a warning of how easy it is to mistake the glow of a screen for the warmth of love. Every perfect surface has pressure points. Theirs began quietly, not in shouting matches or betrayals, but in the dull erosion of routine. Bills that outgrew paychecks. Responsibilities that grew heavier than vows. In-laws who turned family gatherings into minefields. Shanann's illness, lupus, had once made her a fighter. But it also made her fragile.
Lupus, a little.
The medications, the fatigue, the constant management of pain.
It's been a rough morning.
Through it all, she kept moving, believing that hard work and faith could hold everything together.
They just drive me nuts.
Yet behind the strength was a woman terrified of losing control.
Both of them are not feeling too good, so
Cindy Watts, Chris's mother, was another fracture in their foundation. Their relationship was polite but poisoned. Small disagreements grew into distance, distance turned into resentment.
By myself,
Shanann's protectiveness of her children clashed with Cindy's pride.
As one's in the pantry
Every visit
screaming.
became a negotiation, every silence another wound that neither woman would admit to.
Come on.
And Chris, passive, conflict avoidant, let those
Cece.
tensions
Out.
rot unchecked. He'd always been the quiet
This
one,
should be
the
fun.
peacemaker.
But I'm
But
going
silence,
to be taking
when
my
left
pure
too
because
long,
I don't think I can do
mutates
it
into
without
something
it today.
dangerous.
It's
He started exercising obsessively, losing weight, shaping a new version of himself. To Shanann, it was discipline. To him, it was metamorphosis, the first step in building a life she wasn't in. Money was tight. The home, once a symbol of stability, had become a financial burden. Yet appearances demanded maintenance. Shanann's business relied on projecting success. She couldn't afford cracks, not in her image, not in her marriage. So she worked harder, posted more, smiled brighter. But cracks don't stay hidden forever. They expand in silence, feeding on denial. In private texts, Shanann wrote to friends about the man she no longer recognized. "He's cold," she said. "He doesn't touch me anymore." She couldn't see that his withdrawal wasn't random, it was the symptom of a decision already forming. Chris's stillness was mistaken for patience. But it was indifference. He had begun living in parallel worlds, one where he was the dependable husband, another where he was finally free of responsibility. Each smile he gave her was an act of politeness, not love. By then, the home had grown haunted, not by ghosts, but by silence. Shanann filled it with noise, laughter, optimism, and plans for the baby she carried. Chris filled it with absence. Two people in the same space, walking around a truth neither could face. And beneath their smiles, the fracture widened, invisible to everyone but inevitable to anyone who's ever loved alone. Reinvention always begins with small betrayals, new habits, private thoughts, subtle withdrawals that look harmless until they've already taken root. Chris Watts had mastered that kind of quiet deception. While Shanann fought to hold their world together, he was carefully building another one, brick by brick, lie by lie. It started with the body. He lost weight, changed his clothes, started wearing cologne. The man who once seemed content with routine began studying himself in mirrors, as if waiting for a stranger to emerge. He told Shanann he was getting healthy. What she didn't know was that the gym had become his sanctuary. A place where he could rewrite who he was, far away from the responsibilities that defined him. Then came the phone. The secret texts. The new apps. The deleted histories. The coworker who became a confidant. Her name was Nicole Kessinger, and she would become the second life Chris Watts tried to live. She saw in him what Shanann once had, gentleness, attentiveness, stillness, not realizing that those same traits were the camouflage for something empty. For months, he balanced the two worlds with chilling precision. Days spent as a husband and father, nights spent planning an escape from both. Each time Shanann texted, "I love you," he replied with the reflex of a man already gone. Each time Nicole asked about his marriage, he lied with ease, weaving a story where he was the victim, the trapped man, the one who needed saving. Psychologists call this cognitive splitting, the ability to live contradictory lives without conscience colliding. But for Chris, it wasn't psychology. It was liberation. The new life made him feel young again, wanted again, seen again. It didn't matter that it wasn't real. Nothing about him ever had been. The danger of a double life isn't just exposure, it's intoxication. The thrill of control. The illusion of mastery over fate. The belief that you can destroy one version of yourself without killing the other. But secrets have mass, and every lie adds weight. He began rehearsing answers to questions Shanann hadn't yet asked. The sound of her laughter started to irritate him. The children's voices reminded him of obligations he wanted to forget. The house that once symbolized achievement became a cage. When he looked at his family, he didn't see love anymore. He saw everything that stood between him and the fantasy of a clean slate. And that fantasy, soft, dangerous, and utterly ordinary, became the seed of murder. By the time Shanann realized how far he'd gone, she was already fighting a war she didn't understand. She blamed herself first, as so many women do. She thought maybe it was her tone, her expectations, her busyness. If she could just be softer, quieter, more patient, maybe she could reach him again. But love can't save someone who's already begun erasing you. She was pregnant, exhausted, and still hopeful. Hope, the cruelest of emotions, can make even a collapsing world look
huge
reparable.
offer still going on.
She sent
for
Chris
free
messages
shipping
layered
that
with
ends
affection
at
and
10
fear.
o'clock, Mountain
She
Standard
told
Time,
friends she was scared,
12 o'clock
confused,
Eastern
unsure
Time.
if she was imagining it all.
So,
But her instincts were
if
sharper
you've been
than she
looking
knew.
at starting your Thrive
She
experience
felt the void,
and wanting more
even if she
information,
couldn't name it.
definitely message me.
Chris, meanwhile, was
Amazing
methodical.
experience
Every
this
moment of
week.
affection became strategy.
Lavelle
Every word of reassurance a
definitely
cover for what was
outdid
already set in motion.
themselves.
He told himself he was
Literally,
sparing
this
her pain,
place is
even
the
as he built the
paradise.
circumstances of her death.
We've had
It wasn't rage.
amazing days.
It wasn't
spent
madness.
The days at the beach,
It was calculation,
at the
cold,
pool,
practiced, and terrifyingly calm.
at Snow
The real
Island,
tragedy wasn't just that Shanann loved him.
we went to the
It's that she
spa.
believed in him.
Where else
She
did
built her
we go?
life around the idea
All
that he
the
was good,
different
that he was
lounges
stable,
at
that he was
night, all
safe.
the different food.
When she
Hi,
told her friends she was worried,
Sharon.
they reminded her how kind he seemed, how quiet,
The
how
amazing,
devoted.
amazing food.
No
I
one
mean,
saw what she felt in the
seriously.
dark, the shift in
gotta
energy,
organize the
the unnatural
basement,
stillness
so.
that now filled their home. That house, once her sanctuary,
We gotta
had turned
organize
into an
the
emotional
basement,
mausoleum. The rooms echoed differently. The air carried a tension you couldn't see but could feel. Even the children seemed to sense it, the hesitation in their play, the way their laughter sometimes fell into silence midair. Chris had already stopped being part of their story, he was now the observer, watching their lives with detachment. In his mind, the decision was no longer if, it was when. And that's what makes this story unbearable. There was no sudden explosion, no uncontrollable fit of anger. Just a man who had quietly decided that his family was expendable. And then pretended to love them until the very last moment. Behind every crime of passion lies a final conversation. But behind this one lay something worse. A decision so still, so deliberate, it almost looked like peace. When police entered the Watts home, it was like walking into a photograph that refused to fade. Everything was in place, the beds made, the toys neatly stacked, the air still carrying the faint scent of fabric softener and loss. It didn't look like a crime scene. It looked like a home paused mid-sentence, waiting for someone to return. Bodycams captured the search, officers moving room to room, calling SHANANN's name, the echo of their footsteps filling the silence she once filled with laughter. Her shoes were by the door. Her purse sat untouched. Her wedding ring glinted faintly under the kitchen light, abandoned on a counter that had seen every morning of their life together. And then there was Chris, standing too still, speaking too evenly. He gestured mechanically, answered every question with rehearsed precision. His voice trembled in all the wrong places. His concern looked like acting, his calm looked like guilt. To the trained eye, it was a performance unraveling in real time. But the camera didn't just record evidence, it captured contradiction. The man who claimed his wife and children were missing was also the man who knew exactly where they were. That tension is almost unbearable to watch. Every movement, every word becomes loaded with retrospect. When he checks his phone, it's not for updates, it's to maintain a script. When he leans against the wall, it's not fatigue, it's detachment. In the interrogation room, that same detachment metastasized into something eerie.
Yep, recording.
Detectives asked, he answered. They probed, he smiled faintly. The empathy that most people perform under pressure was gone. His father, Ronnie, entered the room, unaware that his presence would birth the first lie of confession. When Chris whispered that Shanann had killed the children, and that he killed her in rage, the lie wasn't just to protect himself. It was to preserve the illusion that he was still, in some distorted way, human. Because to admit the full truth would mean accepting what he'd become, a man capable of erasing his entire world without remorse. Later, when he finally confessed, the calm remained. No tears. No panic. Just quiet acknowledgement, as if the act of speaking it was another task checked off his list. And that calm, more than the crime, more than the details, is what haunts the footage most. It's the calm of someone who stopped feeling long before he stopped pretending. When the courtroom doors opened, two families entered, one demanding justice, the other searching for reason. Between them sat the empty space where forgiveness used to live. On one side, SHANANN's parents, Frank and Sandra Rzusek, held each other's trembling hands. They had come to hear, in sterile legal language, what their hearts already knew. The loss was total. Their daughter, their grandchildren, their unborn grandson, Nico.
I have no
Their
idea.
future, obliterated by a man who had once sat at their table and called them family. Across the aisle, Ronnie and Cindy Watt sat motionless. The air around them felt heavier. Their son's name was now synonymous with evil, and yet, to them, he was still their child. A murderer in the eyes of the world, a broken boy in theirs. The contradiction was unbearable. The cameras panned over their faces, capturing the quiet horror of parents punished for loving someone the world had already condemned. When Chris entered the courtroom in shackles, there was no outburst, no confrontation. Just a silence so deep it felt sacred, the kind of silence that contains everything words can't hold. He didn't look up. He didn't scan the crowd. He kept his eyes fixed forward, as if sight itself had become too painful. The sentence was read. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. No chance for freedom, no appeal, no redemption. For the Rzuseks, it was justice. For the Watts family, it was a slow execution by shame. SHANANN's mother, her voice trembling, stood and spoke directly to him, forgiveness tangled with fury, heartbreak with grace. We loved you like a son, she said once, before grief made those words impossible. And Ronnie, sitting on the other side, wept silently, not because he disagreed, but because he finally understood. The court adjourned, but no one left lighter. Justice doesn't heal, it only names the wound. The Rzuseks went home to photos and memories. The Wattses went home to whispers and judgment. Both families carried different ghosts of the same tragedy. In the end, the verdict didn't separate good from evil. It separated love from its illusions. And the question that lingered, the one that would haunt both bloodlines forever, wasn't just why did he do it. It was how could they ever live with the person he used to be. The story of the Watts family didn't end in court. It was reborn online, dissected, debated, and devoured by millions who couldn't look away. In an age where tragedy becomes content, their faces became eternal. Shanann's videos, once messages of hope, now loop endlessly across social media, replayed by strangers searching for clues that weren't there. Her laughter became evidence. Her happiness became irony. Her life became a case study. Every corner of the internet turned into a courtroom. Comment sections filled with jurors who knew nothing but felt everything. Some mourned her. Others blamed her. Some sympathized with Chris, seduced by his calm voice, mistaking composure for remorse. In this digital arena, empathy competed with spectacle, and spectacle always won.
Where they went.
True
They
crime
went on
channels
foot, they
replayed
went
his
in a
interviews,
car, they went
freezing his
somewhere.
face mid-blink,
And right now
analyzing
it's like
micro-expressions
they've been
as
on
if they
point,
could
they're
extract
going through the
motive
house
from
trying to get
muscle.
sent, and hopefully they can pick something
Podcasters
up
retold
where
the
it's
story
gonna
100
lead
different
to
ways.
something.
Documentaries added cinematic lighting to a horror that needed none.
Actually, like,
The
she
public
came home
wasn't
from
just
the airport
observing,
2
they were
a.m. and
participating,
I left
stitching
around
their opinions into the
5:15.
fabric
She was
of a
still here.
tragedy that no longer belonged
And,
to the families
like,
but to
about
the
12:10
algorithm.
and that
They're
afternoon.
Shanann's
excited to
digital
try the new
ghost lived
promotion.
on.
They came in, I think,
Her
yesterday.
Facebook page still received friend requests,
Hey,
her old
everybody.
posts still gathered comments like memorial flowers.
I'm home with
Her
the
words,
family.
"I'm so lucky to have
And,
Chris," echoed in
they're
every retelling,
excited to
a
try the
reminder
new
of how
Crowbars, and
easily
they
love
came
can
in,
become
I
a
think,
eulogy in the
yesterday.
age of endless replay.
So we have cookies
But
and
this
cream,
fascination
and
wasn't
we
about
have
morbid
meringue.
curiosity
Who
alone.
wants Crowbars?
It was something deeper, a collective need to confront the darkness behind domestic perfection. People saw
Alright,
themselves
so
in her
who-
optimism,
do you guys want
her
lemon
drive,
meringue
her
first,
exhaustion.
or do you want cookies
They
and
saw their
cream?
own partners in his stillness, their own fears in her
Cookies?
last attempts to fix what was already gone. The Watts case became a
You want the
mirror,
lemon meringue?
and the reflection was uncomfortable. Because behind the gossip and analysis lay an undeniable truth. This wasn't a monster
Alright, since I
hidden in the
have this
suburbs.
one open,
This was a
let's try
man
this one
everyone would have
first,
trusted.
okay?
The kind of man who smiles in family photos, who waves to neighbors, who says, "thank you," at the grocery store. That realization was the true horror. Evil, in this story, didn't announce itself. It blended in, wore a wedding ring, kissed its children goodnight, and left behind a perfect digital archive of its disguise.
Awful.
The world kept
We gotta
watching.
organize the basement.
But the longer
so.
they watched, the more they realized, this wasn't just Chris Watts' story. It was the story of what happens when appearance becomes more sacred than truth. Time moved on. The world didn't. Shanann and her daughters became immortal, but not in the way they deserved. Their lives play in infinite repetition, on screens, in documentaries, in the unending cycle of re-examination. Every few months, a new theory emerges. A new voice
We gotta
claims to
organize
know
the
what really
basement,
happened.
So.
But the truth remains unchanged, and their images, once symbols of joy, now carry unbearable weight. Her social media, once a place of affirmation, is now a digital mausoleum. Beneath her photos, strangers post prayers, theories, even arguments. Some apologize. Others accuse. But none of them knew her. They know the narrative, not the woman. They know the crime, not the life that preceded it. Shanann's laughter still echoes through the internet.
Can you guys
The home
tell,
videos
like,
of Bella singing, "My Daddy is My Hero," now sound like a requiem. The image of Celeste twirling in her pink pajamas has become one of the internet's most painful ghosts, innocence trapped in eternal playback. Even the house remains a phantom. Neighbors report an eerie stillness, lights flickering where laughter used to live. It stands as a monument to everything beautiful that was destroyed by one man's need to start over. Visitors still drive by, some to pay respect, others out of fascination, like pilgrims to a digital shrine of modern tragedy. Meanwhile, Chris sits behind bars, his face older but unchanged, his eyes still reflecting that same quiet vacancy. He has found religion, he says. He prays for forgiveness, reads scripture, writes letters to people who see salvation where others see only manipulation. In his words, he claims peace. But peace cannot live where truth is buried. The haunting isn't supernatural, it's emotional. It lives in the collective consciousness of a world that watched love curdle into horror. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico remain alive in the memories of those who never met them but cannot forget them. They are reminders of the fragility of trust, of how quickly devotion can turn to danger. Their story endures not because of the crime, but because of what it exposes, the silent spaces between appearances and reality, between performance and truth. Shanann's face smiles still, unaging, unknowing, luminous. Her life, preserved in pixels, outlived her killer. And perhaps that is the one mercy left in this story. That love, once captured, refuses to disappear. Some prisons are built of stone. Others of memory. For Chris Watts, both became indistinguishable. Inside the concrete corridors of Dodge Correctional, time doesn't move forward, it circles, like guilt trapped on repeat. The lights hum. The walls hum back. Every morning, he wakes to the same ritual: roll call, breakfast, silence. He doesn't speak much. When he does, it's soft, too soft for the weight of what he carries. Inmates know who he is. Some ignore him. Others threaten him. A few offer pity, mistaking repentance for remorse. But even pity, here, is rationed. Because everyone knows, this is not a man who simply snapped. This is a man who planned. He reads his Bible now. Writes letters to strangers. Signs them with verses and half-truths. Some believers respond, convinced he's been reborn, that redemption can rise even from such ruin. But redemption without accountability is just another lie, and Chris has always known how to sound convincing. There are nights, they say, when he wakes in a cold sweat, whispering names no one else can hear. Shanann. Bella. Cece. Nico. The names circle him like ghosts too small to forgive. He closes his eyes, prays, breathes. But prayer doesn't erase memory. It only amplifies it. The guards say he's polite. Always compliant. Always calm. The same calm that once unnerved detectives now serves as his armor. There's no rage here, no breakdowns, just stillness. As if he's waiting for something that will never come. His father still visits. Ronnie sits across the glass, searching for the boy he raised inside the man who destroyed everything. They talk about simple things, the weather, the food, the routine, but beneath every sentence is the same unbearable truth: nothing simple exists anymore. A father trying to love a son he no longer recognizes. A son who confuses remorse with regret. Sometimes, after those visits, Chris stares at his reflection for hours. The glass is warped, but the face remains clear, the same quiet man who once smiled into cameras while his family disappeared beneath the earth. He says he's forgiven himself. But forgiveness is for the living. The man in that cell isn't living. He's enduring. And the weight of what he's done, the silence he once weaponized, has become his only companion. The world moved on. The walls did not. And neither did he. Years have passed, and yet one question keeps echoing louder than all the rest: why? Why a man with no history of violence? Why a husband who appeared so calm? Why a father who tucked his daughters in at night and then buried them by dawn? Investigators have all the data, the timelines, the texts, the confessions. But none of it fills the space where reason should be. Because evil, when it hides in the ordinary, doesn't always declare itself. It creeps in like routine. It wears the mask of normalcy so perfectly that by the time you notice the cracks, the damage is already complete. Some say it was the affair, that lust turned him selfish, that freedom became obsession. Others say it was control. A man who couldn't bear to fail, who'd rather erase than rebuild. Psychologists call it narcissistic collapse, the implosion of a fragile ego when the illusion of perfection crumbles. Maybe it was all of it. Maybe it was none. Ronnie Watts, even now, searches for a softer answer. He calls it trauma. He calls it a break. He says his son changed after something invisible inside him snapped. And maybe he needs to believe that, because the alternative is too cruel. That this wasn't sickness. It was choice. There are theories about childhood, about repression, about emotional vacancy. But none can explain the moment his hands closed around SHANANN's throat. None can justify the drive to the oil field, the burial, the stillness after. These are acts beyond comprehension, and yet performed with the cold logic of someone rearranging furniture. Chris himself has offered new versions over time, shifting confessions, rewritten details, altered timelines, as though revising the story could change the outcome. But truth, once fractured, can't be remade. It can only haunt. And so the question remains, not why did he do it, but how many people have stood beside their own monsters and never realized it? Because this story isn't just about one man's deception. It's about our blindness to the quiet, to the polite, to the people who smile without warmth. It's about the danger of believing that evil must announce itself to exist. What we still don't know may never be found in evidence or testimony. It might live in something smaller, a glance, a silence, a thought too fleeting to notice. But whatever it was enough to end everything. The story of Chris and SHANANN Watts doesn't end with a confession, it ends with a mirror. Because when the headlines fade and the documentaries stop streaming, what remains isn't just tragedy. It's reflection. The kind that forces us to look at our own lives, our own relationships, our own curated happiness, and ask, how much of what we show is real? SHANANN believed in the beauty of effort. She believed that if you loved loudly enough, worked hard enough, and stayed grateful through pain, the universe would protect you. And in many ways, she was right, but love can't guard against deception. Her optimism was not a flaw. It was her language. It was the way she survived. That she died believing in the man who destroyed her is not weakness, it's proof of how deeply she trusted. Chris, on the other hand, represents something more haunting, the ordinary face of emptiness. Not the monster in the dark, but the man in daylight. The one who smiles, nods, and seems incapable of cruelty. He forces us to confront the truth that evil often wears routine like camouflage. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it whispers. Sometimes, it looks like love. Both families still live in that shadow. SHANANN's parents carry their daughter's name like prayer beads, grief strung together by faith. Chris's parents carry shame that doesn't belong to them, but will never leave them. They all wake each day to the same question the rest of us do, how could this happen, and how do you keep breathing once it has? Maybe that's why this case endures. Because it isn't only about murder, it's about illusion. It's about how silence becomes dangerous, how ordinary homes can hide extraordinary horror, and how love, no matter how fierce, can't always reach the places where truth goes to die. The cameras have moved on, but the world hasn't. We scroll past her videos, watch her smile, hear her voice, and for a fleeting moment, we feel the chill of recognition. Not because we knew her, but because we see her in ourselves. And that's what makes this story immortal. Not the crime. Not the man. But the reminder that behind every bright screen, every perfect smile, there can live a darkness, quiet, patient, and waiting to be believed.